Hello and welcome everyone to my stream today. This is gonna be an interesting stream. Today is Eid al-Adha and it's an important, also a happy day for me. So I thought of doing a stream and I'm planning to watch a few good movies, watch a few good videos and just, hang out and give my commentary on it. We're not going to be watching movies in the conventional sense, where you like just go on and watch the whole thing. I'm going to be pausing in between and share my anecdotes. So if you feel boring in those parts, there's nothing I can do actually, because it will actually help me to avoid any consequences for watching copyrighted material. At the same time, I'm going to be at the same time I'll be able to enjoy a few movies. So I'm sorry, at the same time not sorry for that. And I think there is some background noises coming, which I'm gonna avoid in a while. But let me enable my device sound, which isn't coming apparently. Okay, let us first research a bit. And as always, we're gonna use Yandex as our search browser. It's the best browser I know, best search engine, sorry. Because if you search the same thing in Google, then Yandex it, you're gonna see a huge difference in results. For example, so this is the result from Yandex. Now we're gonna Google it. So this is Google, okay? Look at what websites it's showing. IMDb, it doesn't matter. This is showing Reddit, and it's kind of messy too. I mean, they're trying to help by giving. Oh, this girl looks so beautiful. Suji, Jason having troubles to German jet in the village school when she arrives. Later on a stormy night, one lets her in and she sees Pat, another student, fleeing from the school. When Pat reaches her apartment, she is murdered. The next day, Susie is admitted to the new school, but has a difficult time settling in. She hears noises and often feels as who dies and goes brings her into the case. Sounds like a fucking kid's plot. I've watched a lot of these movies. For example, I watched Eyes Wide Shut. I have watched parts of The Shining. I watched Hereditary. Then, yeah, pretty much it. So, what should we watch? A dark song centered around a grief-stricken mother's desperate attempt to contact her little son through the ancient dangerous occult ritual. Dark song. Witchcraft. Yeah. And then we have raspberries. Most of them are horror movies actually. They're not typical. They're not your typical watchable movies. They're horror films. What should we watch? Chat. I have no chat. That's the problem. There we have managed to provide you with some background music. Hope this will help. So, nothing actually interests me, kind of. The Weaker Man. It's a legendary cult classic. A police officer travels to a remote Scottish island to investigate the disappearance of a young girl, only to uncover a community and ancient pagans rituals and beliefs. He becomes undisturbed by the island. This one sounds interesting. Let's watch this one. I have to kind of not show the website. It's not appearing. What happened? Here we go. This is not the one I was expecting. Let's go through this one. I'm bored out of this fucking song. Let's try another one. This is not my playlist. I have no playlist actually. I'm like one of those fucking losers. I like this one, whatever you know. Is this a nice song? Chat. There is no chat. No one's here. Wait a minute. Yeah, this one. It started, man. we have to do something to prevent copyright takedown, and for that let's copyright avoider overlay. Let's see, what can we use? Overlay PNG. This looks good. Now the question is it actually a PNG or what? We have to... Is it actually gonna work? Because most of the time these are fucking frauds. They just... Sorry for my brief disappearance, and I'm back. As always, Google results are useless. This one is gonna be the perfect one. It's gonna have this ominous tone. Yeah. Now we're talking. The Joker movie was such a banger. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen, I mean, in modern history. You don't come across such good movies these days, you know. Most of the movies are fucking Marvel and DC production and produced by corporate houses, which are not good movies. But this was a sudden good hit of an actually, you know, well produced good movie, which makes it 1,000 times better. Hey yo, where is my overlay? Hey boy, where is my overlay? Duh. Fuck it, man. We're gonna have to use something. But what's gonna be it? Who's gonna be the lucky guy? That looks horrible. Screen, probably. I think this one works. Let's stop and get started. Nice B-rolls, I'd say. Cinematic, nice old time transitions. I like it.
Thanks, hon.
Yeah. I gotta say, this lady looks very, very hot. At the least.
Boo.
Hey! Sorry, my line was longer.
Totally understand. If I just ate one of them burgers, I'd be in a trance, too.
Doesn't she look like that singer Del Rey? Del Rey. She looks like Del Rey.
So where's your friend? Honey? Your salad's up.
You know what? People aren't gonna like me for this, but I hate whatever this fucking guy is, Johnny something. I hate this fucking dude. He looks like a fucking moron by his fucking face. I don't need to say anything else. I just hate him for no reason. I mean, aren't you guys have somebody in your life like just by looking at his face you say fuck you. This is that guy. Everything is okay, Douglas K. You're like, these are fake books most of the time. You aren't gonna see anything authentic in a movie set, because if you do show, then you have to take permission from the copyrighted author or the copyright owner. So these books most of the time do not exist, or even if they do exist, they have gotten the permission to show it. And look at the fucking cover of the book. And people say don't judge a book by its cover, but you should judge a book by its cover. The author should have a good taste of art if he wants to write a fucking book. And this cover looks horrible. Who the fuck would read a book of this bald-headed guy who has zero riz?
Give me driver's license and registration. You know what?
One interesting thing about these far away from city places is here no one's more powerful than no one else. Like this police officer is asking for some fucking documents. If this actually happens, no, it doesn't happen actually in real life scenarios when you're like driving, you're like driving from a major place to another, and what the fuck? It crashed. It fucking crashed. What is the fucking movie's name? The Weaker Man. The Weaker Man. Fuck, I was watching the fucking wrong movie. It's 1973. F movies. Movies Z.to. This website was dope as fuck. I mean, it's still the best site to watch movies. I mean, just look at the quality of this website. Terrific. Best looking. Can I stream in 1080p? My Wi-Fi fucking sucks, so I don't think so, but let's give it a try. Right off the bat, we have sun symbolism. So many people do not understand how this conception of God as being a sun came about. I mean, people used to be fucking dumb, and in science you also see this overemphasis on sun, and it's interesting. If you look at human biology, you see the effects of sun itself on our body, which makes you question that this is so odd. Like, imagine some herbs in a fucking jungle is treating a disease of your body. So how nicely correlated do you gotta be in order for some fucking herbs in Amazon working on your body to make you feel a certain way? Think about the psychedelic drugs like ayahuasca or LSD. These are substances that are found in this earth that gives you this mind expanding experience and kind of gives you this out of the world type of experience. Isn't that quite telling about the earth itself? And it's interesting to think about uh, how these inanimate, lifeless objects have effects on our body, which is a living, functioning organism, and also you know, how we have objects of our body that are lifeless. So our lively body is producing lifeless objects like teeth. It's like essentially a stone. Then we have nails, we have hair, um, and you get vitamin D from the sun. It's interesting. It's so well bounded and connected that it makes you question a lot of narrative and isolationist arguments surrounding human evolution and human connection with God and etc. For example, 1,000 years ago, in an African tribe, very isolated from the world, they found the conception of God. That God led them to found ayahuasca in the jungles. They take ayahuasca and in their experience, they get to connect with their ancestors and gods. Now, then scientists come. They cannot explain the phenomenon, how and why they're feeling this way. They cannot explain the neurological phenomenon that's happening. But they're just because they can give and they can provide with an explanation, they pretend that they have kind of debunked the core of the argument. The people are saying that God created the earth this way for us to function in a certain way. There is supreme order in everything which is functional. A functional galaxy has a set of rules. A functioning body has to obey a set of rules. Nothing goes out of the way. Nothing disobeys the order. A certain type of order, which we cannot actually, it's like a fractal. If you look at a fractal, it looks very composed and it makes sense. And soon as you zoom in to the fractal, it becomes mosaic, it becomes complex and hard to get. And you kind of start to think, where did we begin? Like when initially you look at a fractal, you're like in a snapshot, and you zoom in and you're feeling that you are going deep into the fractal, and you're actually going deep into the fractal. And when you keep going deep into the fractal, you see different patterns, same patterns, re-emerging, recombined patterns. And at some point you start to question, where did I begin? Was it the actual beginning? So the order of the universe and order of all the organisms are just like that. You're going to find correlations between them. For example, Newton's laws, for example. There is just a finite amount of energy in this universe. Energy cannot be destroyed nor be created. It's a constant amount. And we don't know. Whoa. 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 And we don't know the amount of energy, but we know that. So saying that there is a finite amount of energy, we're actually defining the order as like a fractal. Then when we zoom in to find out what's the amount of energy there is, we find that we don't know. So explaining the world order, the universal order, is as hard as finishing a fractal. It is never going to finish. You're just going to keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. That's how it works. I think it's a Protestant church. It's a Protestant church, I think. Is my mic on? Yeah.
I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you. And that the Lord Jesus, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, Take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you.
The biggest hypocrisy in Abrahamic religion is in Christianity. They openly profess of there not being multiple gods, and at the same time they have the most paganistic belief of a human being God. There cannot be anything more pagan than saying a human came out of his mother while his mother remained a virgin, and then he becomes a god, or he came into the world as a god. How paganistic is that? Anyone who knows Hindu mythology knows Krishna also sended one of his avatars. The same way Christians believe the Father sended his Son, Jesus Christ. So Krishna sends, or whatever I don't know, curse the Hindu god is. He sent out his own avatar uh, to a couple, and Krishna got birth as God, also being like a human. So this duality of human God is seen in Hinduism, which is a paganistic religion, the biggest one, and in Christianity. So it's an open conflict. And then you have absurd concepts like world shattering concepts like Jesus died for your sins. Now, if that is the case, and if we ought to believe that is what happened, then can the world function with that belief? Much like the ethic of Buddhism, world cannot function with such a Luddite and kind of self-centered ideology. You can follow it in your personal life, but a country, a nation, a world cannot function with that type of belief, which we see in Christianity. So, yeah.
Do in remembrance of me. And after the same manner he also took the cup when he had eaten, saying, This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This oft as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this wine, you do show the Lord's death till he comes again.
And they're saying that this wine resembles Jesus' blood. What the fuck is that? And this whole fucking sacrifice narrative. I mean, Nietzsche said a very interesting line. He said, there was only one Christian and he died on the cross. So, I mean, that is a savage remark. But at the same time, it's true. Christians do not live up to Jesus' standard in any way. I'm already fucking bored of this fucking movie. Fuck it. Fuck watching movies. Let's critique some YouTube videos. I mean, I don't know what these guys are. I mean, they pretend like they are only husband and wife making interesting content, but I don't believe these shills. I mean, one of the biggest mask exposures. One of the biggest exposing event is happening in the world, which is called the war in Palestine. So, you know, I heard an interesting line from comedian, aka cult leader, aka grifter, a fucking douchebag, Owen Benjamin. He said during the corona, masks came on at the same time. Masks went down. So all the so-called bread-pilled truthers, they got exposed of their hypocrisy right at that time, because it was a testing moment. At the same time, when this genocide is happening by the world elite, now go figure who they are. We are getting exposed, and they are being exposed of their hypocrisy. I mean, look at their videos. There isn't a single one about this world-changing event. They're making videos of fucking World Economic Forum. Fuck that, man. Doesn't matter. You ain't gonna change shit about them. You can't. And there is no video made upon specifically on this thing. And they are not talking about it anywhere, which basically shows their hypocrisy. And so fuck them and their content. I mean, I found this girl who has a lot of satanic tattoos in her body. It doesn't talk about the Jews of Israel, but she talks about a lot of interesting stuff, very deep stuff, which I did not hope from any YouTuber to talk about since the death of Matthew North. Matthew was an incredible researcher. He exposed Alex Jones and Joe Rogan very nicely, homosexual Joe Rogan, I should say. And this girl talks about some of the same topics. For example, Esalen Institute, which is an institute that is affiliated with all of these comedians and podcasters. Let me give you a very contextual example. Bobby Lee, this small little faggoty ass Korean guy, who is an alleged. I mean, just let me hold myself. This dude, a few days ago, molested this dude. This Korean fat faggot, degenerate fuck. I mean, sexually assaulted this Janko the Mexican guy, on a podcast of Logan Paul. I mean, this dude, Janko the cock, because he's cocking and sucking Bobby Lee off in this episode. And Bobby Lee kind of came here to do a damage control after this fucking faggot. I can't fucking stand this motherfuckers. And this is another faggot. And look at this fucking beard. He wants very hard. He tries very hard to show himself as like this Christian bastard, whatever the fuck. But at the end, he sucked up to this pedophile. I mean, let me just give you a brief intro of this Bobby Lee faggot. This dude was like, I mean, what is it called? Second generation or third generation? I don't know. Immigrant from Korea. His parents came here, and this dude became a comedian. He shares stories of him raping. Actually, there is no consensual sex with a 14-year-old. There's only rape. There is only rape that you do with a 13, 14-year-old. And it gets even crazier. This dude likes to rape young kids because they cry and they sob when he rapes them. I mean, he says it, and he tries very hard to make it funny, but you cannot. Rape is not funny, man. And this faggot is a rapist. First of all, Then he's so disgusting, and his girlfriend is even more disgusting. His girlfriend Kalila, she tells that she brings up worm from her fucking ass and puts those hookworms on her fucking eyes. And how disgusting do you need to be to do such a thing? These people are so nasty. And the irony of social media, of being like this satanic concept of being the total opposite of what you are. These guys look so shiny and clean and funny and wholesome, but on the contrary, in actuality, they're such disgusting. I mean, I can't express myself enough. So this dude goes on Logan Paul's podcast, in which, just upon arriving, he shows his little Korean balls, literal for his genitals, to this guy to antagonize him. And this guy was quite, nicely molested actually. you know, Thumbs up for that, because this one is a piece of shit too. He does that, and during the podcast, we the audience did not see because it was edited that way. But this faggot was constantly holding his dick, or at least trying to hold his dick. That's an assault. And he became so uncomfortable that he left. He left the show. And this faggot obviously got a lot of backlash. A fucking rapist, then now sexually assaulting a fucking old grown up another faggot. And this dude cried to his ex partner from that Logan Paul's podcast, Mike, and told that you guys didn't do anything when Bobby Lee was fucking me in the podcast. And they kind of, that Mike dude kind of ignored him, which is a good thing. But the thing I'm saying is, none of these guys are good. They're a piece of shit. And let's go back to our base concept, Esalen Institute. So this is an institute propped up by CIA. It's a part of the project Mockingbird, which was created in order for CIA to control the media and control the narrative. And Esalen Institute gives and runs mass programs to experiment drugs, and they want to spread this hippie culture around the world and in America, and they do it via agents like this fat faggot. The reason I'm saying it is because you look at Joe Rogan, you look at this faggot, you look at any famous podcaster or comedian, they're constantly abusing drugs and at the same time bragging about it. You look at Joey Diaz, that guy is a fucking drug salesman. He openly admits that he sells Xanax, which is a mental drug, a disgusting drug. This dude was known as like a pharmacy, a drug dealer in some fucking faggoty ass group that they have. What is it called? I forgot the name, but they have some fucking comedian club or something. So this dude also peddles drug. You look at Joe Rogan, he constantly talks about LSD, DMT, doing these drugs. He brags about marijuana, which is like, these are all mind controlled drugs. You take these drugs and you never come back to your normal state. You're changed completely. And so these are just signs of these guys being, affiliated with intelligence agencies. And, CIA knows that they cannot reach every single people in the world, but what has reached most of the people in the world? It's their smartphones and mobile phones. And what do they see in their smartphone? They look at shots, they look at entertainment, they look at their shows. Now, in early 90s, CIA, not actually CIA, MI6 of Britain was able to hypnotize thousands of people via radio. Later they apologized for doing it. I can show you the proof. Via radio. So basically, you can find it yourself. I look at it on one of the videos, but it's true. It's voice hypnosis. They talk in a certain manner, a certain way, certain topics that kind of numbs your brain. And I don't know if you know, but physical therapies have such profound impact on your chemistry, blood chemistry. It can, like in acupuncture, they put needles in certain parts of your body. People have seen that uh, doing these needle therapy in your body sometimes gives you like 20 times more, not like 20 times, like 2 or 3 times more uh, sleep than morphine injection does. So these aren't obsolete ways of influencing people. So these podcasters are obviously from elite backgrounds. None of these guys are poor. This guy's rich, this guy's rich. Joe Rogan's papa was rich. He was in the entertainment business. Uh, every single comedian that we see on mainstream YouTube are famous, were famous. It's not actually famous, are rich. So, and they're obviously recruited by the CIA, all of these fucking comedians. Obviously, secretly, I mean, CIA is such a thing. If they offer me, I do not get the option to reject it. I mean, if they just approach me, means I'm working for them. Because the latter option is death, which you'd not like very much. So, just be aware that these guys are agents, and the way they talk, the topic they talk about, it's all a part of programming. You get into drugs by following Joe Rogan. You get into um, you know every sort of degenerate behavior via following these creators. Uh, so just be aware that these aren't good people. So it will be very hard for them to influence you, and at the same, it's like immunity. Actually, I believe this sort of information of knowing what people actually are. After I knew Joe Rogan was a homosexual, then I got to know that he's affiliated with the CIA and SLN Institute. That's the reason why he promotes drugs so much, recreational drugs. Then I got to know his, rise to fame and how he had corporate ties. And him, Joe Rogan blacklists or blacklisted many authentic people from his podcast. Like, just for like there's a guy who is now actually compromised called Jan Urban. Uh, that guy was ex Marine or something. He basically introduced Joe Rogan to the world of psychedelics, allegedly, because that guy is compromised too. But since that guy realized that this drug agenda that they're promoting of weed, LSD, DMT, then we have ayahuasca. This is an agenda. This is an agenda. They're promoting shamans. They're promoting this uh, psyop of this, la la land fantasy. We see guests like Terrence Howard, a fucking lunatic. There is a very old saying by Prophet Muhammad which says, if a guy comes and tells you everything that, uh, there's this term, everything, which if a guy comes and tells you things that are contrary to everything that your father and grandfather taught you, then most likely that guy is lying. And that's true for 99% of the cases. Terrence Howard was lying. Cat Williams was lying. It is not actually lying, sorry, it's called limited hangout. It's a term coined by the CIA where they release parts of the information, then they craft some lies with it that is gonna mold the narrative for the betterment of themselves. So these guys are full of shit. So fuck them. So yeah. And then we have this fucking dude. I mean, this is actually laughable at these guys' attempt to share history when what they're sharing is pure propaganda. I was watching, I mean, just look at his coverage of creation of the CIA. I mean, if you ignore the main catalyst that led to all of these warfares, which is a small, tiny community that lives in the Middle East in a small part of land that is very, very, uh, let's say, chaotic. If you ignore that community and explain anything, essentially, you're not doing the job well. Or, most likely, you're grifting, you're being a shill. And I hate these. I mean, these guys, all they do is brag about wokeness, leftism, everything. They're gonna yap about everything, but they won't consider or they won't, uh, you know, talk about the core of the issue. Uh, this fat dude, another shill. I mean, the social media itself. I mean, you know, if you have an entrance gate that only lets in a second, like one person can only come in 1 second by that door, then you don't need to further censor to stop a crowd from rushing in because they can't, because there is a barrier that will only let one person at a time to come in. And that's the way social media or essentially every media works. They have their gauges, they have their gates already planned out. You cannot break the gate and be accepted. If you break the gate and if you discuss some real stuff, you're gonna get thrown out, you're gonna get killed and crucified. But if you follow rules like these fat faggot and all these fucking shills, then you're gonna have no trouble. You're gonna have no trouble entering in. And what you end up becoming, despite, let's say, in your mind, if you're a good person, is you become a shill. You become good for nothing piece of shit, which is sad, which is sad and unfortunate and shouldn't happen. But if someone asks me, then what are we supposed to do in such adverse climate where we essentially, if we want to survive, we have to shill, or we just have to be this, refugee type of. What should we do? I would say keep the silence, be as crafty as them, and stay. Not everyone should be well versed in truth. if a handful of people truly believe in the truth, it can make a huge change. So it's just let people know, and God will be in your side. I mean, look at Donald fucking Trump. This dude, his teachers were Jewish Kabbalists. His dad, obviously a billionaire before him, and suddenly he becomes this uh, flagman of working class white Americans. How? How can a guy like this be such a person? Now he's in this phony trial, uh, which is like, I mean, this is so petty. This is so childish that I don't even want to discuss such useless topics. This is all a stagecraft drama, stage drama. All I see is useless information. If anyone wants to enter into this world of conspiracies and really wants to, like, be a well foundation guy who can stand on his own in understanding what's true and what's not, they should start by reading The International Jew by Henry Ford. That's going to give a very good understanding of history, contemporary history, and the you know basis of which they should judge the modern history and upcoming modern history. That should be the beginning book. That's what this was.
There's no doubt that the forgotten ancient civilizations
Ha!
of Bergen
Wait a minute, I'm coming.
has made this channel what it is today, and I'm betting that you're watching this because you've seen my videos diving into it. I assure you, I'm still working on it, but I have a pretty short attention span, so I'm the sort of guy that gets tired of working on only one thing pretty quickly. And I always want to explore new things, so a couple months ago I forged a new, jam-packed iceberg devoted to a fresh, dare I say, exotic subject. Out-of-place artifacts, also known as ooparts, as suggested by a few commenters. As you can probably guess, out-of-place artifacts are artifacts that have been found where they shouldn't have been found, where you'd least expect them. That can be either geographically or temporally. Examples include a computer found on an ancient Greek shipwreck, a Roman sculpture from pre-Columbian Mexico, a human-made hammer embedded in rock from the Cretaceous, or a Viking penny found in Maine, and tons more. So generally, they're finds that are so extraordinary that their mere existence could dramatically alter how people view history. But a lot of these ooparts aren't actually what they might appear to be, or what they've been presented as. After looking into all 100 plus entries I included in this iceberg, I've divided them into 3 different categories. Number 1. Misinterpretations of what real artifacts actually are, or misinterpretations of something natural as something artificial. Number 2. Outright forgeries, which I'd say includes artifacts that have been deliberately planted somewhere where they're out of place. Number 3. Real, genuine, out-of-place artifacts with genuine historical significance. Usually, these are the products of limited contact between different far-removed cultures, and extraordinary but relatively reasonable examples of ancient technological ingenuity. So I'll be cataloging every one of these entries into one of these 3 categories. So let's begin our journey down this iceberg. The Antikythera mechanism. In the year 1900, sponge divers discovered an ancient shipwreck 180 feet deep off of the small Greek island of Antikythera. It was the very first ancient shipwreck to be discovered in modern times, and amazingly, it's even still surrounded by the bodies of its crew. Under the supervision of a warship, some truly astonishing treasures were dredged up from it, like amazing bronze and marble statues, beautiful glass and silver vessels, and a strange lump of corroded bronze and decayed wooden fragments. This lump once formed a machine now dubbed the Antikythera mechanism, and along with the rest of the ship's contents, it's now housed in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. The mechanism is so perplexing and so famous now that if you search up Antikythera, the first thing you're met with is the mechanism, not the island. It's also the main MacGuffin of that new Indiana Jones movie, so that's why I put it up here at the very top of the iceberg. And the reason why it's sometimes called an out-of-place artifact is because it's just such an incredibly advanced device that there's nothing else like it from the ancient world. So it's one of those artifacts that just seems a bit too advanced for how old it is. The lump, which split off into 82 different fragments and probably only represents a third of the original device, contains a highly complex hand-cut system of gear wheels, making it the earliest geared device ever to be found, and it bears tiny, barely legible Greek inscriptions, which suggest that it was once some sort of astronomical device, and that it was kept in a wooden case. And there's way more to it than what you can see with the naked eye on its corroded surface. In all, it consists of 30 gears with between 15 and 223 teeth each. The full rotation of the largest gear, probably once controlled by a knob on the side of the device, is thought to have represented 1 year. Other gears represented the sun, the moon, and the motions of the 5 planets known to the Greeks at the time. And it's thought to have been capable of predicting the times of solar and lunar eclipses within a 12-hour window. So not right on the money, but close enough. On one side, it was divided into upper and lower parts, represented by spirals. The upper one was used to measure the metonic cycle of around 19 years, or 235 months, which mark when the moon's phases recur on the same days of the solar year, while the lower spiral measures the Saros cycle of 223 months, or 18 or so years, which is when the cycle of lunar and solar eclipses repeats itself. It's so advanced that it's often called the world's first computer, which it was first identified as in 1959. But others have called it a calculator because apparently you could use it to add, subtract, and divide, but you probably couldn't actually program it, meaning that it wasn't technically a computer. But whatever, it's a cool old doodad either way. And it was created 1,400 years before anything similar was produced, when astronomical clocks first started being made in the 1300s. So it's really extraordinary, but it isn't the work of aliens or Atlanteans or anything, because its creation was possible with what was understood about astronomy in the early 1st century BC, when it was made and when the ship it was on sunk. For example, the planetary positions it displays follow the teachings of a guy called Hipparchus, who established a school of astronomy on Rhodes in the 2nd century BC and was able to identify that the moon has an elliptical orbit, which I didn't even know until I heard about him, so kudos to him for figuring it out 2200 years ago. But the mechanism's actual purpose remains unknown. Maybe it was just purely scientific, or maybe it was meant to serve as a fancy navigational aid, and the ship it was on was likely in the process of taking trendy Greek artwork back to the rich and powerful of Rome so that they could show off to their friends. So maybe this was destined to end up as a conversation starter in one of Cicero's villas or something like that. And over 120 years after its initial discovery, the Antikythera shipwreck is actually still being excavated. It was reinvestigated by Jacques Cousteau in the 50s and 70s, but starting in 2014, the Return to Antikythera project has been excavating it. They've discovered more stunning sculpture fragments, and even one more of its crew in 2016. And they've discovered another wreck 400 meters south of it. So there's always a chance that more fragments of the mechanism, or even something just as stunning as it, is still lying somewhere on the seabed off Antikythera. And of course, the Antikythera mechanism could only be put in the genuine category. Roman head in Mexico. Okay, so this is basically the quintessential out-of-place artifact in terms of where it was found geographically, because it's a Roman statuette's head that was dug up smack bang in the middle of Mexico, in layers that predate the Spanish conquest, albeit just barely. It was discovered in late 1933 within a burial deposit dating to between 1476 and 1510 at the site of Texaxic Calixtlahuaca, built by the Matlazinca people just 65 kilometers from what's now Mexico City. It also contained more standard tomb goods like pottery from when the city was controlled by the Aztecs, which is why the tomb is dated to when it is, and various objects made of gold, copper, turquoise, rock crystal, jet, bone, and shell. The layer this tomb was found in was under 3 other intact levels within a larger pyramidal structure called Mound 6, so the head couldn't have just been chucked in there afterwards, unless of course the excavation team tampered with it, but let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Plus, the city happened to have been destroyed by the Aztec ruler Moctezuma II in 1510 after it rebelled against him, and the city was abandoned after that, so that's the latest date at which the head could have been placed where it was found. Aside from the fact that it doesn't really look anything like most other pieces of Mesoamerican art, at least 2 real experts on Roman art, namely Erich Boehringer and Bernard Andrier, have identified it as a Roman work made sometime in the 2nd or 3rd centuries AD, and apparently its hairstyle and the shape of its beard are specifically typical of works made under the Severan dynasty, ruling from 193 to 235 AD, which of course raises the question, why would a 2nd or 3rd century Roman statuette be in any 15th century tomb, let alone one all the way in the middle of Mexico? Thermoluminescence dating conducted in Germany in 1995 has confirmed that it can't just be a modern fake, and that it had to have been made sometime between the 9th century BC and the 13th century AD, conservatively, and between the 2nd century BC to the 7th century AD more liberally. So regardless of how it got to Mexico, it's a genuine ancient or medieval or pre-Columbian artifact, and it's way older than the tomb it was found in. We know that the Aztecs did deliberately keep around Olmec, Teotihuacano, and Toltec artifacts that were made way before their time, so it's not totally unfeasible that this head became a special heirloom after somehow winding up in the Americas in antiquity. But is it at all feasible that the Romans could have gotten all the way to Mexico? The answer is maybe. The furthest west that we know the Romans got to is the island of Lanzarote in the Canaries, because a Roman trading colony was found there pretty recently in 1987, so maybe some galley that happened to contain the terracotta statuette that this head belongs to was milling around over there and just got swept way off course one day, never to be seen again. But the main argument against the head being a Roman import is, of course, that it was just part of some random, possibly medieval European figurine that the conquistadors took to Mexico during the Spanish conquest, and that's what it was initially cataloged as, where it wound up, Mexico City's National Museum of Anthropology. Besides the fact that its identification as a piece of specifically Roman art is based on pretty subjective stylistic analysis, the main problem with for sure determining that it's the product of a pre-Columbian voyage across the Atlantic is that the whole excavation at Calixtlahuaca that resulted in its discovery was pretty poorly documented. There are no photographs of the object in situ or of the actual place where it was found as it was being excavated, or even just diagrams of them. There's also the fact that Calixtlahuaca wasn't actually totally abandoned after 1510. And some houses there were actually occupied for up to a few decades after the Spanish conquest, and clay figurines depicting Spaniards in Spanish dress have been found in them. Strangely, this is pretty much the only aspect of Spanish culture that the remaining residents of Calixtlahuaca ever adopted. The dating of the tomb that the head was found in seems like it's just based on pottery analysis, so I think that there's definitely a chance that even if it was just filled with traditional burial offerings, the tomb could have instead been built shortly after the Spanish conquest, which happened in 1521, just 11 years after 1510, the latest date currently assigned to the tomb, based on pottery analysis. There's also a rumor that a guy named Hugo Modano, who was a student helping to excavate Calixtlahuaca in the 30s, deliberately planted the head as some sort of prank, and that the site's lead excavator, Jose Garcia Payon, was so excited by it that no one was willing to tell him how it actually got there. Or at least that's what an esteemed professor named Dr. John Paddock supposedly used to tell his students at the Universidad de las Americas in Mexico City. But according to Payon's son, his father was routinely asked about this and would always insist that he was on site during the excavation and that Modano had never even worked at the site. Plus, Paddock's very close associate, Ignacio Bernal, personally took the head all the way to Vienna to show it off at the 35th Annual Congress of Americanists, held there in 1960. So it's hard to believe that Paddock wouldn't tell his close colleague about the object's true origins. So generally, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding all this. Some have also criticized the very credibility of the main proponents of the head being Roman, Romeo Christov and Santiago Genovese, but they investigated another supposedly old world artifact found in Mexico, a quote-unquote Phoenician head from the village of Las Palasas in Guerrero, and they concluded that it was a 19th century fake, so I'm pretty sure they're being sincere. Despite the multiple arguments against it, in my personal opinion, this head is some of the most compelling evidence for ancient transatlantic journeys on the iceberg. But there's plenty more potential evidence for their